Daf Chesamid Beis, the second line from the top. We learned previously in the Brisa that a person is not mechuyev to put his hand into the holes, into the cracks, to search for the chametz, mipnei sakana, because of sakana. So the Gemara offered one pshat of what the sakana is. Now the Gemara is going to suggest a different pshat. Rav Nachman Yisrael Gomar Mishum Sakanas HaNachrim. What the Brisa refers to, the sakana, is the sakana of Nachrim. What does that mean? Of Plimahi, and it follows the opinion of Plima Desanya, Chorish Ben Yehudi Laramoi, if there's a wall and there's a hole in the wall, and which separates a Yisrael and an Ramoi, Baidek and Malkum Shadam Agayas. The Yisrael sticks his hand as far as his hand will reach, and that's how far he has to be Baidek for Chametz. Vashar Mevatel Belibai. And the rest of it he does Bittel Belev. It's enough to do Bittel Belev. Well, Plima says, no, Kolatz mean a Baidek Mnei Sakana. Plima says he does not have to do a Biddik at all because of a Sakana. My Sakana, what Sakana referring to? Inem a Sakana Kshafim, if you say Sakana is Kshafim, meaning that the Nachri will be Chayshish, that the Yisrael is performing Kishif over here. It's such an unusual act that he's performing. He'll suspect that this must be some sort of Kishif, and therefore he will harm him for trying to do this. So, frankly, more if that's the case, ki ishtamish, hey ishtamish. Well, how can he use it in the first place? Why wasn't this a kind of kishuv in the first place? And why wasn't that a problem of using it to begin with? No, the Gemara says using it would not have been a sakana. Hasam ki ishtamish, when he uses it, then yimam nahar. He's using it in the daytime, and it's light, it has natural light, and the Nachri will not accuse the Yisrael of Kishuv. It's not such an unusual occurrence. But Hacha, Leilo, Shragi, here, he's doing the Badik, it's at night, it's with a candle, it's something very unusual. It arouses suspicion, what's going on here? And it will therefore it will occur to him that perhaps this is Kishuv, and therefore it's a Sakana. In fact, the Gemara, well, even if there would be a sakana, why would we say he should not do bedika? People who are engaged in a mitzvah, they don't come to harm. So why should we be concerned over here about this? Let him do the mitzvah, and we should not be concerned about a sakana. The more answers no. If it is if it's a hezek that's likely, then it's different. We don't say shluchim mitzvah in Zaykim where it's something which is shchicha hezeka, which is common. And the rai is shenemar layemer Shmuel eichelech v'shoma shol v'haragani. The Rebbeinu Shalom told Shmuel to go and be Meshach Dovid HaMelech, and Shmuel says, "How can I go? Shaul finds out, then he'll kill me." Layemer Hashem eglas bakar tikach b'yadecha. Take a eglas bakar, a calf, for a korban. So you see, however, even though Shmuel was going to be engaged in a mitzvah, he was following the tziva of the Rebbeinu Shalom, still he had to be concerned about the sakana of Shaul. So you see that shchika azeka shining. That the Talmidim that live in the villages, can they come early in the morning, and can they come to the base of Medrash in the morning when it's still before dawn, or after dark and when it's in the evening? Is that a problem? It's dark and perhaps it's sakana. Should they come to the base of Medrash? Amrlu Nesa Alive Al Savare. He said they should come, and it's my responsibility. Let them come, and the responsibility is on my neck. So therefore, he said that we're not concerned because shluchim mitzvah is zaykim. Nezel mai. What about returning after it's dark? Can they go back after it's dark? Can they go back to their homes? Amrlu lo yadan. He said, this I don't know. Itmar, however, the answer to this is Amar Rabbi Elazar, Shluchim Mitzvah and Zaykim loy b'halei chosam loy b'chalzei rosam. But Shluchim Mitzvah, he says, are not harmed, not in the going and not the returning, so therefore they can return as well. How could he be so sure? I said, Alai v'al tzavarai, how can he take the responsibility for it? Yes, shluchei mitzvah in nizaykin, but maybe they were coming and they didn't have the intent for the mitzvah. Now we said shluchei mitzvah in nizaykin, that even if they have a personal intent as well, even if they have an ulterior motive, but as long as they're also doing it for the mitzvah, then we say ein nizaykin. But if they're not doing it for the mitzvah at all, their intent is not for the mitzvah at all, it's only for their personal reasons, then Rav Chanan says we don't say shluchei mitzvah nizaykin. So perhaps that was the kavanah of some of these talmidim. How could a Rav have taken the responsibility? He answers that Rav knew his talmidim well, and they certainly would have a kavanah to do it for l'shem mitzvah. So therefore he said alive al savarai. So we learn over Rabbi Elazar says that the principle of shluchei mitzvah ein nizaykin is not only on the going to perform the mitzvah, but it's also on the returning. Kiman, according to which Tana the Skoski High Tana, like the following Tana, the Sanyid says, Isi ben Yehuda. So this is talking in regard to the Oiragol, the people that come up to Yerushalayim on the Regel. They leave their homes, they leave the possessions. So the Torah says you come up to the Regel, and other people will not take away your lands. Melamed teaches us that your cows can graze in the meadows and wild animals will not harm them. The tarnagal will be picking in the garbage heap, and the weasel will not harm it. So you'll be protected. It's a these animals that, when they are out in the wilderness, they do suffer harm, they are damaged. Nevertheless, there's a haftacha that your arla regel, they will not come to harm. B'nai Adam she'ein darkan lizayk, B'nai Adam which are not darkan lizayk, Rashi says, because they have a mazel, Allah kama v'kama, that you'll be protected, and they will not come to harm, and you will not come to harm when you're oila regel, and you will be protected. So, now, this says when you come up to the regel, you'll be protected. How do I know that even on the return, when you return home, you'll also be protected? Talmud Leimer, it says in the morning you'll turn and go back to your tent. You'll go back to your tents. It teaches you that you'll go back and you'll be in peace. That you'll be in peace because there will be no harm to your property. So therefore you see that not only are shluchei mitzvah, these are shluchei mitzvah, they're going to be all regal. You see that shluchei mitzvah are not only protected on Bali Chasan, but also on Chazir Rasan. The Gemara, well, if you tell me that even on the return they're protected, even when they're finished the mitzvah, so they're not going now to do the mitzvah, they're just returning from the mitzvah, they'll be protected. Well, certainly on the way to the mitzvah, why do I need a drasha both b'halicha and chazara? Chazara should be sufficient, and I would say, therefore, kol shekain b'halicha. The Gemara says, Chanami, that is true. The first drasha is for something else. That the first Rashi is, look at Rabbi. We need it for what Rabbi taught. The Amar Rabbi Ami, Kol Adam Sheyesh Lekarka or Leregel, Shen Lekarka and Leregel. We learn it. We said that when it says Artzucha, that what it says in your land is not to teach you the drasha that you're protected. It's to teach you a different halacha completely. That a person who's achiv to be oil regel is only a person who owns land. If a person doesn't own land, he has no chiyuv to be oil regel. So this drasha that we said or we learned before over here is not to teach you that you're protected. That you learn out from the Chazor. V'layachmet ish as aretzacha is to tell you a person who has aretzacha, a person who has land, he has a chiyuv to be oil regel. A person who doesn't have land, he doesn't have a chiyuv. Taisus learns out this that we darshaned before, that you'll be protected, and you're also that your animals will be protected as well. So it comes out l'maskana that lo yachman ishus artzacha is really telling me a separate halacha. It's telling me that I only have a chiv of be'oil regel if you have land. That your animals will be protected. That how do you learn that out? That aspect, how do you learn it out? Taisus, you learn it out from es artzacha, the tofel, to your land. That is tofel. That means the animals as well. Not only you, but also your animals, your tarnagol and your para. They will also have a protection. Omar Rabbi Avan Bar Rav Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Mipnei Ein Pereski Noiser B'Yerushalayim. He said, we talked about being oil regel. He said, why are there no Pereski Noiser? Pereski Noiser are considered to be a very special fruit, the Paris of Kineres, and why don't we have this special fruit in Yerushalayim? So he answered, Kadesh oil regolim Moimrim, so that the oil regolim shouldn't say, Il Mole Lo Yalinu Elo Lechel Pereski Noiser B'Yerushalayim Dayenu. If this would be enough of a reason to come in oil regel. Now, we want them to be oil regel, l'shem shemaim, to come to the mitzvah. If there were all these special fruit, they would have an ulterior motive. So that people shouldn't say, come up to Yerushalayim was kedai, was worth it just for this pair. So that we don't have this pair in Yerushalayim. So because if they said that it would come, il mole lo inalechel peres kinois b'Yerushalayim dayenu, then nimtzas halil shalei lishma. The aliyah, the being oil regel, will be shalei l'shem shemayim, and therefore they don't have these pairs in Yerushalayim. He said, therefore, he said similar way, in a similar manner, he said, why don't we have these special hot springs? We have it in Tveria. We don't have it in Yerushalayim. Similarly, in a similar vein, because of people be oil and say, oh, and so even kedai just for these hot springs to come to be oil regular shalayim would be sufficient, then the aliyah would be shalay l'shem mitzvah. Therefore, they don't have these hot springs in Yerushalayim. So the Mishnah continued and says, "B'meh amru." Where did they say that you have to check the wine cellars? In what instance did they say that? It's 2 rows. So, who is mentioning a wine cellar? We didn't mention previously in the Mishnah about a wine cellar, so that the Mishnah should ask, in what instance do you have to check a wine cellar? More answers, Hachikar. Kol makam she'ein machnisim by chometz. The Mishnah said, any place which you don't normally bring in chometz, ain't sarech bedika. You don't have to search for chometz. V'aitzras yain v'aitzras shemen nami ain't sarech bedika. And therefore, the storehouses of wine and oil, you don't have to bedikas chometz. So therefore, in what case did they say that you have to check a pantry of wine? In what case was it mentioned that you have to check the 2 rows of a wine cellar? Is makam shemachnisim by chometz, in a place where they do bring in chometz. Ubemistapik, like we learned earlier, that in a case where during the meal, if they run out of wine, the shams goes to the pantry or the wine cellar to bring additional wine, and it's in the middle of the meal, he might be carrying or eating chometz. There, in that case, that's where you have to check for chometz. How much of the wine cellar do you have to check? And Beis Shammai mishtei shuras. Beis Shammai says 2 shuras over the entire surface. So what does that mean? Amar Rav Yehuda shtei shuras shamro. When Beis Shammai says 2 shuras min haaretz v'achmei kaira, it means from the ground up to the ceiling. So if you have rows of barrels that are piled high, so you have 1 row, another row, another row. You have different rows. Each row has piles of barrels, several barrels. The first 2, here's the opening. You have the opening, the door. You come into the wine cellar. These first 2 rows from floor to ceiling. From floor to ceiling, the first 2 rows. The back rows don't have to be checked. That is how Rav Yehuda understands Beis Shammai. Rav Yochanan Amar Shur Achas K'min Gam. He says it's 2 rows, but not the first 2 rows from floor to ceiling. It's the first row, and then the whole top area coming across. So it's 2 rows, 1, 2. It's the top and top to bottom on the first row. We have a riot to both of them. Tanya Kavasi the Rav Yehuda Beishamar Shtei Shuras Al Panei Kol Amati. O Shtei Shuras Shama Min Haaretz Hachmei Kair. It's 2 rows from top to bottom. So it's the first 2 rows from top to bottom. Tanya Kavasi Rav Yechanan. Arai Rav Yechon Shtei Shuras Al Panei Kol Amati Achitzayna Royes Pesach. The first one is what faces the door. Vel Yaina Royes Akera. And the second one is what faces the ceiling. What faces the top part that faces the ceiling. What is behind the first row, or what is so it's behind the first row, is below the top row, does not need a bedika. That's Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel is Shehin El Yoinus. Beis Hillel says the 2 shuras, the 2 outer ones, which are the top ones. So what does that mean? Omer Rav El Yaina Ushlamate Mena. Rav understands that it means you have the first row, the row that's facing the doorway. It means the top level and the level below it. So you have a row of barrels. It's the top row and the one below it. These first 2 layers of the first row, the first 2 layers of the barrels, the first 2 top layers. So it means the uppermost row and the one beneath it. Shmuel Amra Al Yaino Shalifnim Mena. And he says not the one below it, but it means the one and the one behind it. It means the top one, not the ones below it. It's the top one and what's behind it. These first 2. So it's either these 2 or these 2. So my time is the Rav. What's the reason of Rav that he says it's the one on top and the one below it? Dayek chitzayna. He's medayek from what it says. Chitzayna, it's outer. So therefore, it's not one and behind it. It's one and below it because it has to be the outer one. Only the first row. So he's dayek chitzayna. Ay val yoina ketana sal yoinas ketana. It says that the top one, so which is mashma, that they're both on top. So if you say it's the one and the one behind it, they're both top ones. If it's the one and the one below, they're not both top. One's top and one at the bottom. So, and but that's lemute totoy de totoy. It's only to memayat the ones below that. These are the 2 top ones because there's a 3rd and a 4th and a 5th, etc. It's the first 2. It's the first 2 top ones. Shmuel says it's the top one and not below, but it's one and the one behind it. So my time, what's the Shmuel reason for Shmuel Daikel Yoinas? Because it says top. So these both are both top. If it be one, like Rav says, it's one and one below. These are both top. But it also says the outer ones. Now this one is outer, but this one is not outer. So limut gavoy de gavos says limut mimayet, the ones that are even further back. I mean, these are the ones that are the outer ones. There are other ones that are further back. It's mimayet those ones. Rebechia Tanik Havasi the Rav, he learned that like Rav and his interpretation. V'kol Tanai Tanik Havasi the Shmuel, but the other ones learned the way Shmuel explained it. V'hilchasa Kavasi the Shmuel, and the halacha is like Shmuel.